He was only 17. No record, no history of violence, just a teenager with dreams bigger than his small-town world. But one ordinary afternoon, everything shattered. A single encounter with the wrong officer spiraled into a nightmare he never saw coming. By the time the gavel fell, his fate was sealed with the harshest sentence the law could give. Yet what happened next would stun the courtroom and reveal a truth about justice in America that some would rather keep buried. How could this happen? And why did it take his father's name to shake the system? Malik Johnson grew up in a tight-knit neighborhood where everyone knew his name. He was the kind of kid who helped his neighbors carry groceries, stayed late after school to tutor younger students, and spent weekends shooting hoops at the park. His mother worked double shifts at the hospital. His father, a man rarely seen in town, lived states away, tied to a powerful job in Washington. Malik didn't have much, but he had a plan: graduate, earn a scholarship, and be the first in his family to finish college. That afternoon felt no different from any other. The air was thick with summer heat, the streets buzzing with chatter and music from passing cars. Malik laughed with friends before heading home, backpack slung over his shoulder, mind on the upcoming basketball playoffs. But around the corner, a patrol car slowed its roll. An officer's gaze locked on him. He didn't notice the shift in the air, the way a casual day was already bending toward something darker. Soon, the sound of basketballs and laughter would be replaced by the cold echo of a cell door, and Malik's world would never look the same again. The first sign that something was wrong came with the low rumble of tires rolling to a stop. Malik barely glanced at the patrol car, assuming it was just another routine pass. But the officer's door swung open and heavy boots hit the pavement with purpose. "Hey, you! Come here!" The voice cut through the summer air, sharp and commanding. Malik turned, pointing to himself in confusion. He hadn't done anything. He was just walking home. Still, the officer closed the distance, eyes narrowing as if sizing him up for a crime already decided. "What's in the bag?" Malik's voice trembled as he explained. Books, a basketball, nothing else. But the officer didn't listen. He pulled the bag from Malik's shoulder, rifling through it like he was searching for proof of something he'd already imagined. People began to watch from their porches. Malik felt the heat of their eyes, but none of them stepped forward. Within minutes, backup arrived. 2 more officers. Questions turned into accusations. Was he loitering? Trespassing? Why did he look nervous? One of them spotted a dented aluminum water bottle in the bag and held it up like it was contraband. Malik tried to explain, but the cuffs were already clicking shut. At the station, the charges escalated out of thin air: possession of stolen property, resisting arrest, assaulting an officer, because Malik had flinched when they grabbed him. His mother arrived in tears, begging them to listen, to check the security cameras. But the report was already written, and the story they told painted Malik as a violent criminal. The trial moved fast. Too fast. The public defender barely spoke to him before the first hearing. The prosecutor leaned hard on the officer's word, painting Malik as dangerous, a threat to public safety. The fact that he was a young black man in a nearly all-white courtroom was never said aloud, but Malik felt it in every glare, every whispered comment behind him. Weeks later, the verdict came down, guilty on all counts, and then the sentence: life in prison. His knees buckled. The room spun. His mother cried out, clutching his hand until they pried her away. Malik's mind was a blur of disbelief. Life? For a dented water bottle and the crime of looking suspicious? As the guards led him away, he asked for one phone call. The officer sighed, rolling his eyes, but handed him the receiver. Malik dialed a number he hadn't called in years. On the other end, a voice answered, a deep, commanding voice that had addressed Congress and stood at podiums on national TV. Malik's words were barely a whisper. "Dad, they gave me life." And in that moment, the fight for Malik's freedom was about to take a turn no one in that courtroom saw coming. The courtroom doors swung open, and in walked a man whose presence shifted the air. Tall, commanding, dressed in a dark suit, his face was one Malik had only seen on television. The murmurs began instantly, judges, attorneys, even reporters leaning in for a better look. It was the U.S. Attorney General, and he was walking straight toward the defense table. For Malik, the moment was surreal. This was his father, the man who had missed birthdays, graduations, every major milestone, now standing here as the most powerful lawyer in the country. But in that instant, he wasn't the Attorney General. He was a father looking at his son in shackles. The prosecutor froze mid-sentence, the judge's gavel tapping for order. The Attorney General's voice cut through the noise, calm, but laced with steel. He demanded a review of the evidence, citing constitutional violations, racial bias, and a failure of due process so glaring it was almost scripted. His words weren't just arguments, they were indictments of the entire system. Malik sat still, a storm of hope and disbelief swirling inside him. For weeks, no one had listened. Now, the most powerful voice in the room was calling the arrest unlawful, the trial a sham. The officers shifted uncomfortably in their seats, the weight of public eyes and live cameras suddenly bearing down on them. The judge ordered a recess, the courtroom buzzing like a hive. Outside, news vans swarmed, commentators speculating about what this meant, not just for Malik, but for the justice system itself. And as Malik was led back to his holding cell, he felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel since the day of his arrest. It wasn't freedom, not yet, but it was the first flicker of it, fragile and bright. The question now wasn't whether the system was broken, it was whether even the highest power in the land could fix it, before it was too late. Days turned into weeks, and the case that began as a quiet injustice in a small-town courtroom became a national headline. Under relentless legal pressure and the glare of public scrutiny, the judge overturned Malik's conviction. The charges were dismissed, not because the truth had suddenly changed, but because the truth could no longer be ignored. Malik walked out of prison with the weight of chains gone from his wrists, but not from his heart. Freedom didn't erase what had happened. The humiliation of being paraded in cuffs, the cold stares, the quiet whispers, those moments had carved deep scars. Malik knew that if his father hadn't been who he was, he might still be behind bars. The thought haunted him, because for every Malik who gets a second chance, there are countless others who never do. He returned to his neighborhood to a flood of hugs, applause, and tears. But even in celebration, there was an unspoken truth in the air. This wasn't just his story. It was a reflection of a system that too often sees the color of a person's skin before it sees their humanity. Malik now speaks to students, community groups, and lawmakers, not because he wants pity, but because he refuses to let his story be buried. He reminds them that justice shouldn't depend on who your parents are, how much money you have, or the headlines your case can make. Because the question isn't whether Malik was innocent. The question is, how many more innocent lives will be destroyed before the system changes? And when that change finally comes, will it be because we demanded it, or because we waited too long?